You've probably heard it already. Rivian dropped the ball with the R1 Quad launch. No major design changes, no mind-blowing new features, nothing to make headlines. But what if I told you that's not the full story? What if the Rivian R1 Quad isn't a disappointment, but actually a strategic move that most people completely misunderstood? Let's talk about what's really happening behind the scenes. Because sometimes a company's quiet launch says more about their survival than their marketing ever could. So yes, Rivian officially launched the 2026 R1 Quad motor, and a lot of people instantly went, wait a second, didn't they already have quad motors? They did, but here's the key difference. The original quads were outsourced. Rivian didn't actually make them. This new setup? 100% in-house. Their own hardware, their own software, their own control systems. It's not just a motor upgrade, it's a company milestone. They've brought one of the most complex pieces of EV engineering under their own roof, giving them tighter control, better tuning, and a path toward higher margins long-term. That's not flashy. It doesn't make for viral headlines. But it's a move that defines which companies survive in the EV race, and which ones burn out. Now, this quad setup isn't just about numbers. Sure, you've got more horsepower. Sure, you've got this new feature, the kick turn. And let's be honest, it's fun. You twist your scroll wheel, and the R1 can rotate itself on loose terrain. Not quite a tank turn, but close enough to make off-roading enthusiasts grin. Of course, it's not meant for pavement. The system's smart enough to know the difference between a slick trail and asphalt. It's playful innovation, a nod to the adventurous spirit that made people fall in love with Rivian in the first place. But again, it's not the headline feature people expected. It's not an all-new design or a 400-kilowatt charging miracle. And that's exactly where the misunderstanding begins. The reaction from a lot of influencers and YouTubers was predictable. They looked at the specs, saw a few new paint accents, some teal brake calipers, new badging, and said, "That's it? Where's the innovation?" They expected Rivian to go all out. New architecture, new braking system, more range, more flash. And to be fair, it's understandable. When you're paying over $100,000 for a vehicle, you expect the absolute best. Top-tier materials, bleeding-edge performance, something that feels like an event. But here's the reality most people miss. The 2026 Rivian R1 Quad was never meant to be a revolution. It's a stabilization move, a step towards sustainability, not a sprint for hype. Let's step back for a moment. Everyone loves to compare Rivian to Lucid, another high-end EV startup. Lucid's Gravity SUV has wild performance, ultra-fast charging, and an interior that screams luxury. But there's one massive difference. Lucid doesn't need to make money right now. Their financial backing, primarily from Saudi Arabia's public investment fund, gives them nearly unlimited runway. They can lose 6 figures per car, and it doesn't matter. They can afford to chase perfection because profitability isn't the goal. Rivian doesn't have that luxury. Rivian's biggest backers, Amazon, Volkswagen, and major institutional investors, expect results. They're not just funding a dream, they're demanding a business case. Every quarter, Rivian has to show progress toward gross profitability before unlocking the next phases of funding, including billions tied up in the Volkswagen partnership. So when critics say, why didn't Rivian go bigger with the Quad? The answer is simple, because Rivian can't afford to burn billions for bragging rights. Think about it. If Rivian poured millions into redesigning braking systems, thermal management, and charging architectures for a $120,000 niche vehicle, would that make sense financially? No, because the Quad isn't their future, it's their bridge. Their real focus? The R2 platform, a smaller, more affordable vehicle lineup meant to bring Rivian into the mainstream market. Those R2 models are half the price of the R1s, yet expected to deliver 80 to 90% of the experience. And developing that takes enormous capital. Factory expansion, retooling, new battery systems, supply chain scale. So yes, Rivian is being cautious. They're consolidating. They're making surgical updates instead of flashy overhauls. Not out of laziness, but survival. Now, here's what I find fascinating. People call the R1 Quad underwhelming because they see restraint as weakness. But restraint, in Rivian's position, is actually a sign of maturity. They're choosing discipline over indulgence. They're prioritizing long-term life over short-term applause. That's rare in this industry. Most startups die because they chase attention, not efficiency. Rivian is trying to flip that playbook. Spend smart. Simplify manufacturing. Keep as many shared components as possible, and protect margins. You might not see it, but every small decision here, keeping the same battery pack, same body shell, same platform, it all adds up to a company that actually survives long enough to make an R2, an R3, an R3X. Because honestly, if Rivian goes bankrupt tomorrow, no amount of upgraded brakes or charging systems would matter. There'd simply be no Rivian at all. Let's talk about the investors. When Rivian took big money from Amazon and major venture capital firms, it came with strings attached. These investors don't care about keeping the world adventurous. They care about profit margins. So Rivian's engineering team, the people who dream up features like tank turns and kick turns, now have to balance that creativity with investor expectations. That's why you see new services like Connectivity Plus and Rivian Autonomy Platform. These aren't gimmicks. They're recurring revenue models. They're the building blocks of a sustainable EV business. And that's the bigger picture almost everyone missed when reviewing the R1 Quad. Let's come back to that Lucid comparison for a moment. Lucid can make a $140,000 vehicle with 400 kilowatt charging, 7 seats, high voltage systems, and never turn a profit because they're backed by a nation-state with virtually unlimited capital. Rivian? They're a startup with a ticking clock. They have to deliver vehicles that sell, margins that improve, and operations that scale, all at the same time. So when someone says, "Why can't Rivian do what Lucid does?" It's like comparing a marathon runner to a trust fund billionaire. They're not running the same race. The R1 Quad is not meant to redefine Rivian. It's meant to refine it. It's a small flex that says, we can do this ourselves. We can innovate without overspending. We can grow up. It's a message to investors, engineers, and loyal customers alike that Rivian isn't burning cash to look good. It's quietly becoming profitable, stable, and self-reliant. That's not boring. That's evolution. Another fun twist? Some influencers said the Quad is overkill. Too much power, too fast, too unnecessary. But honestly, so is the standard R1. Even the dual motor setup is beyond what most people need. Let's be real. The majority of Rivian owners aren't rock crawling through national parks every weekend. They're commuting, road tripping, or just enjoying the design and spirit of the brand. So to call the Quad overkill is missing the point. It's not meant for everyone. It's meant for those few who want Rivian's ultimate expression of capability and don't mind paying a premium for it. Every brand needs that halo product, the model that represents their peak engineering and helps finance the future lineup. That's what the R1 Quad is. It's Rivian's flagship statement piece, not a mass market moneymaker. Imagine you're inside Rivian HQ right now. Your engineers are begging to add more features. Your investors are demanding higher margins. Your customers are screaming for updates and faster charging. And all the while, you're trying to gear up for a brand new product line, one that could make or break your company. That's not laziness. That's a juggling act of survival. So yeah, the R1 Quad might not have a brand new suspension system or a revolutionary voltage boost. But what it does represent is confidence, refinement, and focus. Every dollar Rivian doesn't spend upgrading the R1 Quad goes towards something much bigger. The R2 factory, the R2 design, the R2 launch. That's the product that could finally bring Rivian into the mainstream. That's where Rivian can take the lessons learned from R1 and deliver something affordable, scalable, and sustainable. Because in the end, it's not about who can make the wildest $120,000 SUV. It's about who can make a $45,000 EV that feels just as special. And that's where Rivian's heart and money is going. The Rivian R1 Quad isn't misunderstood because it's bad. It's misunderstood because we, as consumers, expect constant spectacle. We want every new release to reinvent the wheel. But innovation doesn't always mean reinvention. Sometimes innovation means discipline, the ability to say no to what's exciting so you can say yes to what's essential. And that's what Rivian just did. The R1 Quad isn't their loudest statement. It's their smartest one. If you understand Rivian's strategy, the investor pressure, the capital limitations, the scaling challenges, you realize the Quad launch wasn't a step backward. It was a strategic pause, a recalibration that sets up their next big leap. So no, Rivian didn't drop the ball. They're just playing a longer game, because when the R2 finally hits the road, and the world realizes what that restraint was buying them, that's when everyone will say, "Oh, now it makes sense." Until then, the R1 Quad will remain what it truly is, a misunderstood milestone. Quiet, calculated, and absolutely essential.